As the filing deadline for most June filers is fast approaching, one major concept that one should pay attention to at this time, particularly because it has been newly introduced into our taxing framework, is the concept of development levy. Someone read that to me earlier in the week that a non-resident company is required to compute development levy. And that was part of what spurred me into looking at this on our interaction for today. Olada Jade is my name. I remain your foremost business coach who designates it's time to read the tax laws so that you don't have to spend as much time doing the same. Development levy has just been introduced through the Nigeria Tax Act that became effective 1st of January 2026, and it has been configured on the filing platform. I have expressed my view on that configuration in one of my videos in the past, and in case you want to know my view, just go to my channel and go and check where I was advising the NRA to have a rethink on the adoption of the NTA for 2025 operations, meaning returns that are being filed now. But that's not the focus of this video. The focus of this video is to expound on development levy as a concept that has been newly introduced into our taxing framework. It was Section 59 that introduced it. It collapsed some HEMAT taxes. HEMAT taxes like the tertiary education tax, like the National Information Technology Development Levy, Nigeria Police Trust Fund that we used to have before, that were HEMAT on contribution, 1% of accessible profit here, 1% of total profit there. All of those things were condensed into just one single development levy at 4%. The attempt is to simplify tax compliance and consolidate multiple HEMAT taxes into just one levy. And here comes the critical question: who is liable to pay? It applies to companies that are chargeable to tax under the Nigeria Tax Act. However, it exempts two categories of companies: small companies and, yes, your guess is right, non-resident entities. Companies that are not Nigerian companies are not required. And if you think about it, it's a Nigeria-based fund, right? It's a levy that is targeted, at ensuring that the fund is available for national development, So, and if you recall, one of the HEMAT tax, which is the tertiary education tax, had the same level of application in the past. So I want to believe that the draftsmen must have borrowed that leaf, from this to have sustained that exemption. So a non-resident company is not liable to pay the development levy. So if you have your computation that has been done for a non-resident company who is seeking to comply with the provisions of tax laws by filing tax returns this month or for any applicable month, just remember, because you are following this channel, that development levy, I wanted to say education levy, development levy is not applicable. It is collected by the Nigeria Revenue Service. We have to remember that, just as it was for the HEMAT taxes that have been condensed. And you need to pay attention to these as business owner, because it's been consolidated and there will be no need for you to repeat those other levies that you have had. And it's also on accessible, profits. It is not merely a new tax. It's a signal of Nigeria moving towards consolidation of tax obligations. Recall that multiplicity of taxes was really a thing when the fiscal committee was putting these reforms that gave birth to these tax laws, together. And I guess this is one of the answers to those questions arising from many quarters with respect to multiplicity. They put everything together and then charged it at 4%. The policy idea is to reduce fragmented levies that would increase possible non-compliance, and create a more centralized funding mechanism for the government. From a taxpayer's perspective, however, the key issue of compliance and costs is always a problem, because a 4% levy on assessable profit can be significant, especially when you look at the situation for companies that are profitable with significantly large operations. So that concern is there. But rather than have fragmented taxes here and there, levies here and there, we may not have complied with police trust fund, and then someone is coming a couple of years after to say you didn't comply. All of those possibilities have now been eradicated. So, development levy may simplify the structure of EMA taxes, but it also requires businesses to be more deliberate in their tax planning. Remember that this levy is on your assessable profits. So adequate planning is required for you to know what your potential exposure would be in any year period. The message here is simple. Understand whether development levy applies to you, depending on the type of company and the size of your company. Remember, the companies that I said are exempted. If you're a small business, a small company, and if you're following this channel, you know that a small company is a company that has revenue of less than 100 million and asset threshold of less than 250 million. If you don't know that, you can go and check some of my videos, in the past, so that you can keep yourself abreast, of that. So determination of whether or not it applies to you, it's a simple message that you need to confirm, and you also need to ensure correct computation, budget for it. And then remember that in the new era that we are in, what you do not plan for may become a costly exposure. Till I come your way again, I remain Oladejo Adeyemi, your foremost business coach, who designates his time to reading the tax laws so that you don't have to spend as much time doing the same. Bye for now.